Alright, we're going to talk about the difference between the fill and the stroke. Okay, in our tools section right here, you will see at the bottom that you have a square, and if I hover my mouse on top of that, it will say fill, and the shortcut is X. And right below that you have the stroke. It looks like a picture frame, and the shortcut is also X. The reason why is because when we hit X, we can switch between the fill and the stroke. The fill and the stroke. The one that's on top of the other one, it's the one that we have selected. If I hit A for my direct selection tool and I select this rectangle right here, you will see that my stroke is black, and if I click on the fill, my fill is white. I can change the colors by clicking on whatever I want to change. So for example, I want to change the fill. I can go to my swatches, and then I can select any color that I want my fill to be. Same thing for the stroke. I can click on the stroke. Notice that now the stroke is on top of the fill, and I can select any color that I want. The reason why we cannot see the stroke is because our stroke right now, it's 1 point in thickness. I can go right here to the top. I can select a stroke weight preset, and now we can see our stroke better. If I select this freeform right here, you will notice that if I click on my fill, I can select a color from a specific color palette. And the same thing for the stroke. Select the stroke or hit X so it goes on the top, and then pick whatever color you guys want. You can increase the stroke weight right here, or we can open the stroke palette right here. Let me pull the stroke palette out so we can see it better. The thing with the stroke palette is that by default it's only going to show you the weight. However, if you go to the stroke palette's options right here on the right hand side and I go show options, it will give me more options. I can change again the weight of the stroke by going here. Let's go to 20. Then if I have, for example, let me use the pen tool by hitting the letter P. If I have an open path, like for example right here, hit A to get out of the pen tool, you will notice that my path is not closed. Now I can change what the caps do. I can click on a round corner cap, and I can make a square corner cap. For the corners, if I had a corner, I'm going to use the anchor point tool by going to Shift C, and I'm going to just click on that anchor point so it becomes a sharp anchor point. And you can see that now the corners, I have the ability to control the corners. I can have a miter joint, I can have a round joint, and then I can have a bevel joint. I can align my strokes so it's on the inside. So for example, if I select this closed path right here, I can align my stroke towards the center, align the stroke towards the inside. Now the stroke is inside of the path, and I can align the stroke to the outside of the path. I can also create dash lines by selecting dash lines. Okay, if you only have one number in the front, Illustrator will assume that you want the same gap and dash. So if I change this to 24, you will notice that my dashes and my gaps are 24 right to where they connect. Now I can change the gap by making the gap smaller, and I can also have variations on my gap dash. So I can have 24, then I can have a gap of 12, and then a dash of 36. I'm going to deselect dash. On a open curve, I can have arrowheads on the outside. Obviously these ones are huge, so I will make them smaller. And I can also have those at the end, or I can make the end the shape of an arrow. Again, we're going to have to change this to the same size as the one in the front. I can make it so that the arrow and the tail start outside of the end point of the path, or they start inside of the beginning and the end of the path. And for the profile, I can select different shapes, thick and thin, with specific profiles, and on and on. The last part that I want to cover with the fill and the stroke is that we can add a gradient to both the fill and the stroke, but we can also have a fill of none and a stroke of none. For example, if I get rid of this right here and I move my square behind my freeform shape, what I can do, I can select a freeform shape, and under fill I can select none. None is a little square that looks like a scuba flag. It's a white square with a diagonal red line. And now, as you can see, I have a stroke of green, but under fill I have nothing. And this is how you create fill and strokes in Illustrator.